sit up, yeah. You sit up, yeah.
You've all heard that saying, it's just like riding a bike. A skill once learned and never forgotten. But what if you never had the opportunity to learn in the first place? What if where you're from, only boys learned how to ride bikes? Or conflict, poverty, meant that cycling just wasn't possible? What if as you got older, no one had the patience to teach you? Or the fear of falling, of failing, kept you from even asking? I, like many of you, learnt to ride when I was a child, when being vulnerable, falling, failing, just part of the job description. Maybe you have a memory of one of your parents finally letting go of the back of your bike, that glorious feeling of almost flying and you're doing it. For me, it was riding the streets in my childhood suburb of Tasmania, each time seeing how far I could go, how much more of the world I could explore before I just turned around and rode back home. As I got older, cycling remained an important part of my life. It was my primary means of transport for 3 years when I moved to Canberra. It got me everywhere I needed to go, from university to work. It connected me to friends, and it was incidental exercise in an otherwise pretty busy life. So when I heard from some women I was working with 4 years ago that they'd never had a bike, they'd never learned how to ride, I just thought, how difficult could it be to teach adults how to cycle? Spoiler, it's actually a little bit more difficult than I first anticipated. But I didn't know that at the time. And so I applied for a grant, and then I got the grant, and I thought, okay, now I'm going to have to make this thing happen. And I was genuinely concerned that my idea would just spectacularly fail. I thought I was way out of my depth. In fact, I don't think I really even told many people about it, so that when it did implode, I could just kind of like pretend it didn't happen. But something unique happened for me with that grant and our program. Someone else believed in me and what I was trying to do, and they gave me the space to try it, no matter the outcome, success or failure. And because of that, I did. Over the past 3 years, Girls on Bikes has taught more than 90 migrant and refugee women in Canberra how to cycle. Over a 5-week program, each woman learns at her own pace in a safe and supportive environment. At the end of the program, she gets a free second-hand bike donated by the community and a helmet so she can take her skill out into the world. We do monthly social rides to continue to build our community and our skills, and the cycle of learning continues because a number of our previous participants are now accredited coaches leading the program, and they're the best at it because they remember so clearly what it was like to learn. Although they come from more than 20 different countries and they span ages from 18 to 70, what really unites the women in our program is the awe, the pride they feel in being able to do something that they didn't think was possible for them. A lot of our participants didn't have that freedom, that luxury to learn a bike, something as delightful and indulgent as a bike, when they were growing up. A lot of our participants didn't have the freedom, the luxury for that kind of vulnerability, falling, failing. Picking up on my earlier point, it's not often as adults that we find ourselves in those spaces again. So a lot of our participants had just assumed that cycling was a lost opportunity for them. But through Girls on Bikes, we create that space again, and they're enabled to just show up and try, no matter the outcome. And it's not just about the cycling. There's something really special about that environment we've created that goes far beyond two wheels. Girls on Bikes has demonstrated to me just how powerful those enabling spaces are. They let us do something extra, something that we don't necessarily have to do, but that has potential to really add value to our lives and to our community. By being enabled to participate in those spaces, to try, no matter the outcome, it's a gateway to broader empowerment and autonomy. For some of our participants, cycling becomes their primary means of transport. For Manisha from India, cycling has opened up a world of possibility. Previously, she felt limited in how she could engage in her community and her activities, but now she doesn't have to wait for buses or ask for lifts. She feels connected, independent, empowered. For some of our participants, cycling becomes something they can do with their family, teach to their children. She and Shamsa became great friends in our third program. She used to be left behind on family rides, but now her and her teenage daughter actually ride to our social rides. And Shamsa has been able to teach her son how to cycle. For some of our participants, learning to cycle is one of the only things in their life that they're genuinely doing for themselves. For Mary, who grew up in a small village in Kenya, she never ever thought that she would learn to cycle. And at the end of the first program, she still just wasn't quite there, but she came back and she did another program and she kept working on it, and now she teaches other women how to cycle. For Mary, cycling gave her a great sense of accomplishment, of being in control of her own achievements. And it's really encouraged her to try other new skills. Now she's like all over cycling and she's going to do swimming. And for some of our participants, our community here becomes one of their first in Canberra. For Mervat, who moved here recently from Sudan, Girls on Bikes has offered her long-lasting connections, friendships. She has this just delightful, bubbly personality, and she's a fabulous advocate for our program. And she's driving its expansion into South Canberra. She's inspired and connected with so many women there that we have a waiting list for our program. And these are just a few of countless stories of really incredible women who've done the program and have made it to be so much more than just cycling. But I want you to think about you. When was the last time that you tried something new? Really got out of your comfort zone? I mean, back to basics, open to failure, relying on others to show you how it's done. When was the last time that someone else created that space for you, without conditions or costs? Again, as children, it's almost a daily occurrence as we're learning about how the world works. But two things happen as we get older. The first one, as I've already alluded to in my own story, is that we just get less comfortable with the idea of failing. It becomes something to be ashamed of, an endpoint, something that's so significant it can stop you from wanting to try in the first place. A lot of our participants talked about that fear of falling, that fear of not being able to do it, as being the main barrier to just asking someone to teach them to cycle before they came to us. The second thing that happens is that we're just not as good at creating those enabling spaces for one another. We have a lot of patience generally, and generosity with our time for children when they're learning, but we often don't afford that same patience and generosity to adults when they're learning. So when we miss fundamental opportunities and learning and skills when we're younger, it can be really difficult to find those spaces again. For the participants that did ask a family member or a friend to try and teach them how to cycle, they always felt that there was this undertone of, it's actually just easy. It's just like riding a bike. You just kind of move your legs. And so they always felt like, is the problem me? You know, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And they stopped trying. We've had a really unique opportunity in our program to teach a fundamental practical skill. And I've got no doubt that there are other skills and programs out there that could have a similar potential to transform individuals and communities. But I think that this idea goes beyond that. How many other things could we be failing at, learning from, really conquering if we had those enabling spaces to just try, no matter what happens? Or in other words, how many skills go unlearned or brilliant ideas go unshared because we're conditioned against failure and we don't have access to that safe space to try? So how do we create that safe space? Well, for us, it's about women only. A lot of our participants hear about us through word of mouth now. So that role modelling, that if she can do it, maybe I can do it, is really important to getting them to that first session. Once they're there, it's about the camaraderie, it's the mutual accountability of being in it with other women. It's the unwavering support of our volunteers who will be there with you whether you get it on the first day or you get it on the last day or you get it in the following 5 weeks. It doesn't matter. And importantly, we have fostered a culture where failing is not something to be ashamed of or embarrassed by. In fact, it's not really a matter of if, but when you'll fall off. And on any given week, one of our coaches will have their own kind of war wound as a bit of a testament to that. The most important thing is that if and when you're ready, you just get back on the bike. But back to me. When I first had this crazy idea that I would just like pop people onto bikes and kind of give them a push and they just ride into the distance, I didn't know if I could do it. I'd never run a community program like that before. But someone created the space for me to try. They gave me permission to fail because they saw the value in the growth and the learning that can come from the process, regardless of what the outcome is. In that first year, we taught just 10 women how to cycle. And I think there was like a bloody knee or two, and my little Holden Barina took a beating as I Tetrised like 4 bikes into the back. If you just open some of the windows, it's incredible. Yes. But for the most part, it was a great success. And it was a success in ways I couldn't have even imagined when I first had that idea. But we couldn't get to that space, and we couldn't keep continuing to grow our community and our program without that enabling space to try. If we create these spaces for one another, big or small, no matter the outcome, success or failure, we have immeasurable potential to transform our communities for the better. We need to create a culture where failing is okay, because otherwise people limit their potential by not even trying. By making it okay to fail, we make it okay to try. We start to build more communities with people like Manisha, self-sufficient and independent. People like She, leading the pack and showing her daughter that anything is possible. People like Mary, active learners, resilient. And people like Mervash, who are inspired to go on and create that space for other people, inspired to teach other people so much more than just how to ride a bike.